Welcome again to Word Crumbs as we explore the Psalms together. Today is the 17th of September. And just before we go to the Psalm itself, I'd like to remind us a little bit why we are doing this. Because we want to draw from learning how to pray with the Psalms. As we said, to talk directly to God about different areas of our lives. So the psalmists basically wrote their prayers to God, their direct prayer to God, as a way of introducing the listener to pray about different aspects, different situations of their lives. So, for example, we were praying these days about the value of our culture as the great works of God. We were also talking about the value of faith as one of the works of God in our lives. So each day we're looking at the way that the church presents the Psalms to us, which is also in relationship or in relation to the readings of the day and the message that the church is encouraging us as Christians day by day, as Catholics especially perhaps, or as Christians also, since it's the same word of God. So day by day we are learning how to bring the Psalms into our prayer and learn to turn to the Psalms when the day comes. It's like saving up for a rainy day. Maybe today you don't need that psalm. Maybe today the psalm doesn't make sense to you. So just like when you save money in the bank, you're saving it, it doesn't seem relevant because you have different needs of the day. But when the rainy day comes, when you need the money, you can withdraw from that account. So somehow the psalms are like that. No, it's an investment of our time, investment of our prayer and our faith, so that when the rainy day comes, and normally you don't think you need so much spiritual help, but some days you really need the presence, the guidance of God to make decisions, not only in crisis situations, but in different ways. Then we can just withdraw when we are already becoming more familiar with the Psalms. So it's not something to memorize. It's nothing like an exam, but it's just becoming familiar with the way that people for thousands of years have turned to God. So today, as we go on to this today's Friday of the 24th week in Ordinary Time, we're looking at Psalm 49. And the verses are stated there. So the response of today, somehow the theme of today is, Blessed the poor in spirit, the kingdom of heaven is theirs. So blessed the poor in spirit, basically meaning those who know that they don't just depend on themselves. They don't depend on their own wealth, but they need to depend on others. They need to depend on God. In a spiritual sense, they need to live in a way that I depend on God and not just in my own resources. So blessed the poor in spirit, those who know that they are dependent on others as well, despite our own personal responsibility for our lives, because then they will experience God's kingdom. Now let's look at the psalm itself, and the theme here will manifest itself as we read it. The psalmist says, "Why should I fear in evil days, when my wicked ensnarers ring me round? They trust in their wealth. The abundance of their riches is their boast." So already you can see a theme about dealing with wealth and riches. So he continues, "Yet in no way can a man redeem himself or pay his own ransom to God. Too high is the price to redeem one's life. He would never have enough to remain alive always and not see destruction." So here, just a little introduction or explanation, if you like, although it's quite speaks for itself. But somehow this second part of the psalm tells us that riches is not always reliable. Wealth, though it does help us, though money is useful and necessary even in our time, especially those who live in cities, money is necessary. but it is not completely reliable to buy the most important thing, which is your life itself, or we can say happiness. And then it continues, fear not when a man grows rich, when the wealth of his house becomes great, for when he dies, he shall take none of it. His wealth shall not follow him down. So it's also an invitation not to get jealous or feel insecure. Sometimes we feel insecure when somebody else becomes richer and I remain as I am. Not necessarily poorer, but just as I am. And there's this human tendency to be insecure or jealous. And there's a reminder here that there are more important values in life than wealth in itself. Okay. And lastly, it says here, though in his lifetime he counted himself blessed, they will praise you for doing well for yourself. That's what they think. But he shall join the circle of his forebears, who shall never more see light. So again, it's trying to say what is the future of those who just rely on their riches. Just bring you back again to the response. Blessed the poor in spirit, the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Now, let's come back to this topic about money. All right, why is this psalm talking about being poor in spirit and realizing that wealth is not the only thing we can depend on? And because the first reading today, if you go to read it, normally the psalm is in response to the first reading. It's talking about this very famous verse that the love of money is the root of all evil. It doesn't say that money is the root of all evil. It says that the love for money is the root of all evil. And once again, we can ask, no, is it wrong to be wealthy? Is it wrong to have money and to aim for wealth in our lives? And again, the question is not about having wealth or that money is bad, but the point here is, do I only rely on wealth? And I think we all know the answer. But today, I would like to ask you a question to think of it in the opposite side. No, we always say that money is not the only thing, or that wealth is not reliable, and we shouldn't just focus on getting rich. But I'd like to ask you on the other side of the coin, no, to see from the other perspective. So I invite you to reflect on these questions. Pray to God about this. Lord, if we do not trust in our wealth, what else can we trust in? Ask this question in your prayer today. Lord, all this psalm is saying that wealth is, the future of the wealthy and etc. It sounds very negative. But let's ask the Lord, if I do not trust, Lord, in my wealth for the future of my children, that money, that it can secure what they need, and even in my present, in this time of pandemic, if I do not rely on my wealth in this especially difficult time, what can I rely on? This will be a very interesting reflection because it places us in a very real reflection, not just in an idealistic or religious kind of words, about wealth, but in the real life. If you don't rely on wealth, what do you rely on? Of course, there are different answers that I can propose. You can think about it. First of course, we can say, I rely on God. I can trust in God. And then some will say, God doesn't give you food on your table just like that. No, God helps those who help themselves. So it's true in a certain sense, I rely on God. But what else? Can I rely on good relationships? If I don't have money or wealth, do I have relationships that I can rely on? Can I rely on my family? This is something interesting to ask because in our day, it seems like really a question to question us. Can I rely on my family if I don't rely on my wealth? Because in past days, that's all we had to rely on. And there was no question about it. I can always turn to my family. Can I have my family to rely on? Do I have good enough relationships in my family to rely on them, if not on my wealth? Friends, do I have true friends that I can rely on? If not for my wealth? What else? Maybe I can rely on my society. Some of us come from countries where we can rely on our social security, the systems of government aid that we can receive. And you'll be surprised that there are really many. Our governments are not as bad as we paint it out to be. If we are really in need of help, I believe in many systems, there are ways. There are ways to find help when we don't have our wealth. It takes a bit of humility, or a lot of it. Takes work as well to go through the processes in order to get that help. But most of us come from places where we can get help, especially in this region where I am now. Can I rely on social friendship? In Chinese, there's this expression, buying the goodness of people. So somehow investment in relationships, can I rely on that? Or can I rely on myself, my hard work, my genius, my talents? Is that what I rely on, if not on my wealth? So it's interesting to ask really this question today. If I don't rely on my wealth, what can I rely on? And you will be surprised that there are many resources that we can rely on, and not just on money. Though money helps, money is necessary, as we said, but it's beautiful this psalm is helping us to explore that there are other resources in which we can rely on to live, and even to live well. So I just invite you to ponder on these other resources that you can rely on. Blessed are the poor in spirit, that spiritual poverty, not only that physical or material poverty, but that spiritual poverty, to realize that God has given us many other ways to rely on other than money, because that is what is changing our society, an over-reliance on wealth, and forgetting that there are many other values in which we can rely on, and resources. Now, talking about values, I'm going to ask you a second question in order to go deeper into this psalm. So the first was, Lord, if I don't have wealth, if I don't trust in my wealth, what can I trust in, right? And to explore that. Now, the second question is this. In a time, as we said, just give me a moment, I'll just recap my thought. Okay, sorry. So coming back to this psalm, in the spirit of this psalm, and looking at, again, the other side of the coin, we go back to the first side. So what the first side we're looking at is that if I don't trust in wealth, what can I trust in? So it's to explore, that wealth is not bad, but we need to learn to rely on other things. And then the other side of it, to try to see again the negative side, the limitations of wealth. And the question that I'd like you to ask is, what are the things that money cannot buy? Just to realize its limitations. Am I giving too much emphasis in building up wealth, and I forget the other things that wealth cannot buy? So I'll just throw you again a little list of things so that we can explore. Instead of investing only in wealth, what are the other things that we would like to invest in? And more than things, values. Values, experiences of life that we need or that we look for to live a happy life. So the first thing is satisfaction. Money cannot buy satisfaction. Of course, there's a little bit of satisfaction to buy things. When you go to the mall and you have this capacity to buy a new car, you have a capacity to buy a new computer, etc. So there's a certain satisfaction, but it's a very deep satisfaction that wealth itself cannot buy, which is like purpose in life. Wealth doesn't buy that. No, it's as I said, wealth buys a very temporary and maybe short moment of satisfaction, of purpose. I feel purpose in buying and having wealth and earning, no? But at a certain point, it loses the sense of purpose. It cannot buy meaning. And most of all, it cannot buy contentment. So I'm always wanting more. As we say, the more I have, the more I'm afraid that I need more. No, sometimes it's not that we love money. Sometimes what we're looking for is security. I think that is normal and even valid. That when I have more, I feel I need to maintain that more, which has a certain valid ring to it, as we said. But there are things it really cannot buy, which is like love. As we said, true friends, true friendship. You cannot buy true friendship with money. And in fact, we know that true friendship is tested when you don't have money. And you see who are the ones who really come to help you. But they come to help you because of friendship, something that you have invested in that relationship. So love, friendship, a reliable friendship, I mean, a real sense of security, you can't buy with wealth. A future for your children, you cannot buy with wealth. Enthusiasm in your children, you can't buy with money. No matter how much you give them, you can only make them enthusiastic about life to a certain level. Money cannot buy aspiration, desires, dreams. And this is a real challenge for parents today to help their children to dream about life. And no matter how much you give them, you can't make them aspire. And sometimes the more you give them, the less they aspire for. Wouldn't you agree? And so there's something that wealth cannot buy. What are those things that wealth cannot buy? And so what do you need to invest in order that you can get those deeper things that a person looks for? Love, friendship, reliability, security, aspiration, dreaming for the future. These things wealth cannot buy. So what resource can buy these things? So once again, let's go back to the response, and to finish, I just finish with this. Let us ponder this today. Blessed the poor in spirit. Blessed those who don't rely only on their money, their wealth, or their possessions. What is the wisdom in these words today? And how can we invest in another kind of wealth that can really make us blessed, happy, satisfied, and fulfilled as persons, as human beings?